It got to a point, and this is when it was really scary for me, and I would consider it my bottom, is when I knew, like, even as mixed up as I was, and I was drowning in self-justification and rationalization. But even in that state, I realized that I had lost control of my drinking. It was like I'm drinking against my own will. It's a really scary feeling when you don't, like, you're not planning to drink and you end up doing it anyway. And so that had gone on, and I wasn't ready to get help though, right? The pride, self-justification, whatever. And so I thought, I'm going to do this on my own.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 5 of the Recovery Plus podcast. On today's show, my guest is Dylan Marcel. Dylan is a 32-year-old man from Peterborough, Ontario, who quit drinking 11 years ago. His passions include playing music and working out regularly. He's coming on the show today to talk about a profound spiritual awakening that he had this past December, which he says is the biggest one that he's had since being on this recovery journey. So I'm really excited to hear about that experience and to get to know Dylan a little bit better. Dylan, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So Dylan, you and I met, I think, probably 2 years ago or so, maybe 2.5 years ago.
Sounds about right.
Do you remember how that came about? I remember we ended up Zooming and having a pretty good conversation about recovery and spirituality. I probably talked your ear off about meditation. But how did we initially come into contact?
It was through online mutual friends or something, maybe through like a Facebook group or whatever. And then somehow maybe I liked a lot of your posts, and I'm not sure who reached out to who or how, to be honest. I don't really remember, but we became friends and followed each other's stuff a lot. And yeah.
Nice. And here we are. We are talking about your journey. And I like to start each show by asking the guest about their rock bottom. How dark did it get for you by the time that you basically were ready to stop drinking?
Yeah, well, very, but extremely. But I've been reflecting on it since you brought it up. And I mean, not to out how you do the show or whatever, but like, you gave me a bit of a heads up that this is a question on the show, right? So I had some time to maybe reflect on it. And it's not dissimilar from the most recent spiritual awakening, which we'll get to in a bit or whatever, I guess. But in that I realized how it's not working. Like I hit my bottom, and I was living in it for a few months. And I finally realized, like, this is like going into a purgatory state, for lack of a better word. I hope you get what I mean. Like, you go into nowhere land, and it's just going to go on forever, and until it gets worse, till you get thrown in jail or die. But it got to a point, and this is when it was really scary for me, and I would consider it my bottom, is when I knew, like, even as mixed up as I was, and I was drowning in self-justification and rationalization. But even in that state, I realized that I had lost control of my drinking. It was like I'm drinking against my own will. It's a really scary feeling when you don't, like, you're not planning to drink and you end up doing it anyway. And so that had gone on, and I wasn't ready to get help though, right? The pride, self-justification, whatever. And so I thought, I'm going to do this on my own. And I did a lot of little experiments and games, and they all ended up, I saw them talked about in literature afterwards, and I got goosebumps because I thought, how did they know I did all this stuff? It's because, I need what that book has to say, right? But I did all those. So reading self-help books to try and stop or control drinking, exercising more, changing the nights of the week, changing the people I'm drinking with, changing the kinds of drinks. I did all that stuff. Long story short, none of it worked, right? I would always end up drinking again. And it got to a point where I was like, okay, I can't control it, so I'll try to stop it. I accept that I can't drink. And that, it was really painful, but it was like, I have to accept this, but I still don't want the help of other people. So I tried to stop on my own willpower, and I tried that a number of times. The longest I could go out of all the times I tried to stop drinking was 2 weeks. And then the 15th, and that's out of all the times. The 15th day I went and got drunk again. And so that was the moment where I was like, okay, I have to admit that, my way is not working. And I need the help of other people. So I reached out to get help, and I haven't looked back. Like I said, okay, whatever I'm wrong, you're right, because what I'm doing, I've tried and tried, and it's not. I'm going around in a circle. It's not working. I'm up against the wall. So just, I guess, that feeling of powerlessness and helplessness and despair and all this kind of stuff. It hurts in the moment, but it ends up being the bedrock upon which the journey begins, and you move towards a lot of things that are otherworldly and positive and awesome and beautiful, and so.
Yeah. And the book that you were talking about, for those listeners who might not know, is the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and in it does say that it is always darkest before the dawn. So that's what you were just saying, right? It got really dark, but after that was the beginning of this whole new way of life for you, and of course myself and many other people who come into the program broken. Now, you've been in recovery for 11 years. You're 32 years old. So that must mean that you got sober at a pretty young age.
I quit drinking when I was 21. Wow. I started when I was 14.
Wow. Okay. And you said that you realized that you couldn't control your drinking. Externally, though, on the outside, what were some of the things that were happening that were making you think that you were starting to lose control in other areas of your life, not just in how much you drank?
Oh, my health in all areas was it was compromised. Like so even socially, the social health, right? And then even and that took a long time into recovery, which we'll get to at some point later or whatever as well. But more and more people were cutting me off because of me, not them. I know that today. I'm not trying to, blame anyone. Because I was either saying or doing really dark and disgusting things, or stuff I don't remember if I was in a blackout, right? And sometimes very public or whatever. And so more and more you go onto the island, like you're certain, even the people you think, oh, they'll never leave my life. They're always going to be, even they run, and they have the right to do that. And there'd be something wrong with them if they didn't eventually, right? Like people shouldn't have to put up with that kind of stuff. So, so socially, physically, I was having up and down and weight, and this, I wanted to sort of work out all the time, but could never really stick to it. And I just crushed my spirit, really, or over time, more and more, my spirit was being crushed. Because I'd have all these plans to work out and stuff and then not be able to fulfill them. Right. And so physically things weren't looking good. And in my first early recovery, the people there, they could just look at me and they knew, okay, this guy's new, and I remember sitting there shaking and it can be really serious. It's serious. I don't know a lot about the science stuff, probably not as much as you do, but from what I've heard is, they lose more people from alcohol withdrawal than any other withdrawal, right? And so physically, socially, emotionally, of course, like it all goes together. My emotions were up and down. I felt like, some days I'm the king of the world. The next day I was, for a number of years, I was actually wearing sunglasses all the time. I didn't want people to see me. I didn't want to make eye contact with people. So it was actually pretty bad. Like, if I look at what was going on externally and stuff, it wasn't good, and it was only getting worse, and it was starting to get more and more like in terms of the physical stuff, like wanting to get maybe more physically violent with people and stuff. And I'm glad that was cut short, because that's not proud of that stuff at all. And no, it's a better life today. If there's anyone new out there listening, never give up. Where there's life, there's hope. It's been 11 years or more, and I haven't beat anyone up or gotten beat up or haven't been thrown in jail or have, not looking over my shoulder, wondering, who's coming for me to get even. And it's just a lot more sanity, this way of life, normalcy, serenity.
And what do you attribute your alcoholism to? Anything that happened when you were growing up, or at least at the time that you decided to get help? Did you blame, let's say, your family or circumstance for why you were in the place that you were?
So this is a loaded thing, and everyone has the right to their own opinion and experience and whatever. I believe it runs through families and it runs in mine. And I'm not a real religious guy, but I know there's another book that talks about generational curses. And I believe that's one of them that runs through families, is alcoholism and addiction. And I think that's a really real thing. It's like generational trauma with the Native people. And there's generational trauma in non-Native families too. But it's like what happened to the grandparents will affect how they parent, will affect those parents, will affect that's a really real thing. And so I know that can offend a lot of people, but I believe I was born an alcoholic, especially with what I understand of alcoholism today. It's the mental obsession right below the conscious level. And it's the physical part, the physical allergy that's fired off. And once that's off, I don't have control of how much drinking I do. The fact that you're born, there's a physical thing involved. It's not far-fetched for me to think that people are just born an alcoholic. I know that offends a lot of people. I'm not trying to do that today, but I'm a big believer in because I've been in therapy groups over the years with people that had depression, people that had trauma, this and that. Some of them were alcoholics and addicts. Not all of them were. There's a lot of people out there that have trauma, but they're not alcoholic. And so I'm kind of leaning. People could end up this way, maybe in a number of different ways. I'm a big believer in the biological thing, that it runs through. And that being said, I'm not trying to blame my family, and I have to look at all the stuff I did and take ownership of it, and try to fix it. And so it's not about trying to blame other people and not take responsibility. I'm not saying that either. But I don't think there's such thing as triggers. There's only excuses. Like if I didn't have the reasons I had to go and get drunk, I would have come up with some other stories to go in. Like nothing outside of me caused me to drink. I caused me to drink. My alcoholism causes me to drink. When I talked about, I had 14 days and the 15th day went out and got drunk. I came up with a story that day. If I told you it now, you'd laugh. But at the time it was real. I thought it was my friend's birthday and I phoned, and he knew I was trying to be sober. And he said, "Oh no, you don't have to come down and drink with me." But he insisted, but I persisted. So no, it's your birthday. That's what we do. We have to. And at the time, I thought that was real. And probably for a few months into sobriety, it was, "Oh no, it was my friend's birthday. You can't blame me for wanting to drink. It's my friend's birthday." And then at the time, I really, believed it. And so again, I don't want to offend anyone with that either. But that's my take on things. There's no such thing as triggers. There's only excuses.
Yeah, I like how you say that, because it puts the responsibility on me to accept that, ultimately it doesn't matter what's happening around me. I'm responsible for my own actions. And if I have that kind of mindset, it's going to make it a lot less easier for other people to dictate my recovery. Right?
Yeah, but victims can get dry, but they're not going to stay sober. And like I might not be responsible for my alcoholism, but I'm responsible for my own recovery.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So talk about your recovery. What was the process like?
So early sobriety, I feel like, and not to get all intellectual, and I feel like the 12-step journey, it's a form of CBT. That's not all part. A huge part of it is spirituality, but a huge part of it is a CBT, of putting it on the individual. And so the people that were there before me, I guess the slang is, we call them old timers. They used to give me a lot of truth airstrikes. That's what I call them. Like boom, right over the head. It would cut through, because I'm full of self-justification and BS. I'm just full of BS, my own BS, and they have to cut through that. So they did. They looked me right in the eyes, and boom, there's no such thing as triggers. There's only excuses. Boom, quit playing the victim, kid, because victims might get dry, but they're not going to stay sober. Or when I first came in, right, I look back on things. I believe this is just an example, but I believe I would intellectualize to compensate for feeling socially inadequate. So there's no need for it, right? Like I'm an educated person. I know a lot of big words, whatever. But there's no need to go around using all these words in every situation, right? Unless you're trying to sound smart or be better, that, like, you know what I mean? And they could see that from a mile away, right? So I forget the one guy. It helped me a lot though. He's like, how many big words do you have, kid? And like, you know, who are you going to help by if no one can understand what you're talking about? And you know, just the way about they weren't like abuse. They weren't emotionally abusive, but they were blunt, and that works because that gets through. That gets through all my BS, all my self-justification. And so I remember a lot of that in recovery, and it helped. And then, I remember the spirituality part. I'm not a super religious guy, but I remember feeling close to God. I had a number of experiences, early recovery. I felt like, you know, warmth and comfort, of like a guardian angel's moment. Like I was stressed out the one night, you know, I didn't believe in myself. Like, can I really do this? And then it was sort of like comfort from another world came, and no one was there. And I knew no one was there. I wasn't hallucinating. I knew no one was there, but I felt like a pat on the back, like it's going to be okay from another. And I guess you could say that was like my first step experience or whatever. I was a month in or something like that. And so, and you know, time went on, life goes on, you get working, whatever. And I was also taught that as well. And I kind of believe in that is, I understand some people really can't work. They're not lying. And I get, you know, but in general, for those who can, and it's most is, if you can get a job, like that goes hand in hand with sobriety, with a sober life, is to have a useful and normal life, like normalcy. And it's really good for, like, you know, to not be bored, and to have some self-esteem, and to get out involved with other people. It's really healthy. Having a job is really healthy. I think it's, in my opinion, it's underrated in today's world. I like, if someone was like, you know, what's the number one thing you recommend for someone who's feeling down, alcoholic or non-alcoholic, I say, tell them to get a job. Like, I know maybe that sounds crazy to them right now. Trust me, two weeks into working, they're going to feel great about themselves. That's my opinion, based on my experience. But anyway, so that's what recovery was like, is just learning lots of stuff, having to relearn kinds of things about life. I learned, you know, what socially appropriate behavior is, what it is not. And all this stuff has helped me grow as a person. Like I'm just giving you, I can't keep you all day, but just a quick example was, we're in the lounge one time, and the guy was beside me, and so the people come in, and you know, it's sort of an unwritten rule, or it's like you should shake everyone's hand and greet everyone. The one guy said, "Oh no, when a lady comes in, you have to stand up and shake her hand, right?" And I was taught all this kind of stuff, like the social cues and all, and it's been an ongoing journey, you know, one day at a time. But that's what it's been like, is just an endless journey of learning and healing and growing, and discovery, self-discovery, helping others, you know. And that's really the whole thing of the program, right? Because I'm such a selfish, self-centered person, that I need to reverse that, right? So get out of myself, find ways, things I can do to help, service, right? Like, what can I do to help someone else? It's not all about me. You know, I'm just one person in the whole world. The world doesn't revolve around me. And so hopefully that answers your question. I had a lot of coffee today.
I had one too, prior to having you on. So we're both caffeinated, which is good. No, I like where this is going. When you were talking about how the old timers would just be very blunt with you, I find that a lot of people, especially if they're not willing to surrender to recovery, that scares them off, and they start to look for reasons why the program isn't going to work for them, instead of recognizing that the reason that they're rejecting the program is because the bluntness, the truth, hurts their ego, right? The truth hurts. And when I came into the program, I had an attitude of willingness, open-mindedness, right? And honesty. I knew at that point that my way was not working, and that there was a reason why I was stuck. And that reason probably had something to do with who I was. And so I surrendered, And when people told me certain things that I didn't like to hear, I tried to be open-minded to that and listen and try to understand why it was that it was hurting my feelings when I heard those things. So the bluntness is part of the program, and I think it's something that people would benefit from, right? If they really want to get better. Do you agree?
Yeah, yes, I do. I think it's what works, and their motive is love. It's kind of like, again, this is a weak example, full of weak examples. I hope you like that. Like if we were hanging, well, I don't think we ever met in person yet. Maybe someday. If we were ever hanging out at the coffee shop or so, or we're having breakfast together, and then I have food on my face, would you tell me that I had food on my face as a good friend would, or would you say, oh no, I don't want to hurt his feelings, I don't want to rock the boat, I don't want to, right? Like the loving thing to do would be like, hey Dylan, you got something on your face, because that'll save me from future hurt, being embarrassed when I get up and walk around. And I know that's maybe not the greatest example, but where I'm going with that is they're trying to save your life. It's out of love. They're not like, if someone's doing it to have a power trip, then that's really sad, and I would walk around people like that. But like the old timers I experienced that I'm talking about, it was like out of love. There's like, we see you're not going in a good direction here, and we don't want to watch you get hurt, so we're gonna take the time to help. And it's and the reason for the bluntness is to, like I was saying before, is to cut through all that self-justification and all the stuff I got going on in my head of rationalizing and all that. They have to cut right through it. So I don't know who, I think my friend came up with, I can't take credit for it, and I can't copyright it, but I call them truth airstrikes. I love that, but it's the old timers. Boom, there's your truth airstrike for the day. And it can hurt in the moment, but as time goes on, you'll be grateful that they did it.
Yeah, I agree. And now that you've been in recovery for 11 years, what was that process like of being in the program so long? Because for me, when I first did the steps, I had that beautiful experience of happy, joyous, and free, and the obsession to drink and use went away. But as the years go on, I'll just put it bluntly, the repetitive nature of doing the same thing over and over, of going to meetings, right? It does become stale at certain parts. So how have you managed to keep recovery fresh for yourself, or even just the program fresh?
Well, yeah, I know what you mean. I can relate to, you go into like maybe it's a stagnant or complacent way of being, like just on autopilot, and this is life now and whatever. For me, I mean, I've been surprised though, like the spiritual awakening I had recently. I feel like I didn't really, I wasn't praying on working on this stuff. I wasn't trying to work on this stuff. I felt like my higher power came down, tinkered with me, and went back up. And it was kind of out of nowhere, and so I'm not sure. I guess everyone could answer that differently. Like, I guess, well, COVID happened for us, and that was how long do you have in now?
5.5.
Or you're 5.5. So, well, yeah, I mean, COVID turned the world upside down, so that was sort of like a bit of a test, right? Like we're moving on to Zoom now I mean, that's over with now, but yeah, I mean, I guess that maybe helped to see, how are things going to go, and can the programs survive through this, and will it help or hinder or both, or, I'm not sure, man. I guess the short, honest answer to you.
Okay, so let me ask it this way. Were there periods in your recovery where you felt like you were stagnating?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I can relate to that for sure. Yeah, where it's just like, this is life now. What got me through that, I guess, maybe is going back to the work thing. Because I remember I got into the working world, and I remember I went there with my head down, applying for one of the first job or something, and then I ended up I felt great about myself and freedom, and it was awesome. So I think maybe for me personally, working really went a long way.
Great. And when it comes to the spirituality component of the program, what is your perspective on spirituality, and how do you practice it in your day-to-day life?
So I'm in no way a guru or an expert, and far from it. But I mean, things have happened to me in my life where my right now anyway, my faith is really strong because of what happened to me recently. Um, I guess I've had a confused or conflicted relationship with religion, and I'm not a religious person. I'm not anti-religious either. I make the joke sometimes. Like I've had issues with. I've lived in a religious community for a year. I went through different things, or then which was awesome. There was one I lived in for a year. It was life. It was just unreal what it did for my spirit and everything. And then I applied to join another one in America. Things didn't go that great there, and then so I've had my own battles and issues and resentments I had to deal with spirituality, religion, whatever. I get that it's a loaded, complicated, it's a complicated thing, and I've had to. But I always make the joke with people is I've always felt like born again Christians and people from NA could go toe to toe with each other to have a competition to see who per capita as a group gossips the most. But I guess that's I'm just being silly. But no, I went to a born again Christian church for a while, checking it out and stuff. And so I'm not anti anything. I'm open to whatever. My take on it is it's kind of it's in that book that you mentioned earlier as well. It says make use of what religious people have to offer, even if you're not one yourself, kind of thing. And that's what I do is I respect religion. I don't bash it. I don't think I'm above it. I have a thing like you know, these are just some quick examples, but the idea of a hospital, for instance, there were always doctors for thousands of years, but the idea of a hospital, like a place you could go to get medical help, that was invented by the Catholic Church. And apparently it was a pope that made the mechanical clock. And you know what I mean? Like the Braille alphabet, that's Catholics came up with that. And then also Israel, the endless inventions of science and medicine, coming out of there by religious people in the name of their religion, that's helped the world immensely. And that goes for any religion. I could keep going, name any religion in the world. So I can't deny that a lot of good, a lot of charity springs forth from religion and religious people. If I can't admit that, I'm either lying to myself or blind, or that because that's just the way it is. So I acknowledge that. I respect it. I don't think I'm above religion. I don't bash it, but I don't really partake in it myself. So I'm more the kind of guy who, like I attend a group that actually meets every Sunday morning. So like I'm not a churchgoer. So my take on spirituality is I have an ongoing prayer life. Another thing the old timers I was talking about earlier that they told me when I first came in: ask for help in the morning, say thanks at night. And I still do that to this day, even though the desire to drink is long gone and been removed from me and stuff. But that's what it's like. Is it's prayer, meditation, and that's what spirituality looks for me. And then putting it into action too is huge, because that's really, philosophically speaking, it's the actions that show where I'm at, right? And so I need to have that, like generosity, helping others, caring, putting other people first, all this kind of stuff. That's my view of spirituality. Is it's about prayer, meditation, action, and attitude as well. And you can, and what I'm trying to say is, and a person can do that with or without a religion.
I agree. I agree with you 100%. I like how you pointed out some of the good things that have come out of religious organizations or religious people, because often when I run into people who reject religion completely, they sort of throw the baby out with the bathwater. All they do is they focus on all of the wars, the prosecutions, and all of these things, but they never talk about all of the great things that have come out of it, which, I find is, a little bit short-sighted. It doesn't give a full balanced perspective. It sort of paints religion with one kind of color instead of the multi-varied color palette that it is. And I also agree with you that it isn't for everybody. I don't go to church, for example. I follow a spiritual path, but I wouldn't consider it a religion per se. But it teaches a lot of the same things that any spiritual path or religion talks about, selfless service, prayer, meditation, taking kind of living a moral life, things like that, which I think all spiritual paths and religions have in common. I think where things get muddy is when organizations become rigid and power hungry and personalities get involved, and those principles are no longer the main focus of that church or that organization or the person who's running it, right? And so that's where it's the human power and the human will that comes into those teachings and distorts those truths, right? And that's what people blame religion for, is human error or failure to live up to those ideals generally. Now, let's talk about your spiritual awakening that you had in December. I'm really curious to hear about what happened.
I don't even know where to start.
Well, what do you think led up to you having the experience that you had, and then maybe talk about the experience itself and then what you learned from it?
Yeah, I think there were things that brought it on. And some people told me that the way it works is I must have been a little bit willing, or otherwise I couldn't. So I reflected on it, and I think there maybe there is a way that there was a crack for God to get in or whatever. It was brought on by other stuff overall too, I guess. Like it was, I feel like the channel was all clogged up, and I don't know the technical word for it. I'll say effed up, right? It was all whatever. And somehow God was able to unclog it. This awakening was to do with forgiveness, and I was not able to. I've tried to. I was conflicted over the years. Long story short, I couldn't understand what I call the mystery and miracle of forgiveness. And I'm glad that we're doing this interview in a way, because I was actually planning on some point making like a slideshow thing. I'm not as tech savvy as you are. But I was going to do it like a slideshow called or make a little video or something presentation about the mystery and the miracle of forgiveness explained for vindictive people. Because for me, it was really being like under a spell, or it was like just a whole different. And again, like we said before, I'm not just saying that to pass the buck. I have to take ownership for the stuff I did. And I have to own, like, that's the only way recovery works. I have to be responsible for what I did and go and make those amends, or else it won't work any other way. But it really was like I had a parasite up here, or I was under a spell, or I couldn't get it. I was in a religious community where they preached about forgiveness every single day. I've been going to meetings for a long time, and the forgiveness theme comes up all the time. And when it came to me to share on this, oh yeah, forgiveness, that's a great idea. Like I couldn't get it. I honestly couldn't get it. And today I do. I feel like, so that's the short story is I came to believe and understand the mystery and miracle of forgiveness. The long story of that is I'll sound like someone who maybe should be in a nut house, but at least it's positive. I believe that somehow, some way, God removed my second personality, or he removed that part of me or that side of me or whatever. So it was brought about, I guess, because I experienced forgiveness from other people. So before this, so first of all, I was a vindictive person. There was some conflict there. It was like, I really wanted to help people, take a lot of guys to detox, be a good member of the 12-step journey, but it doesn't really jive, right? It's sort of like but I couldn't see it. I thought I could manage both, right? I could compartmentalize. Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. It's like, I'll do this, but at the same time, I have the right to punish and reject these people. And it is vindictive, but the word I like to use even better is spiteful, because spite covers everything. Spite is the punishing and rejecting of people, believing retaliation will get me anywhere, the out of control bursts of anger, gossiping, targeted insults, shame attacks on people. Spite's a really serious thing. It's like I was reading up on it, people who are a dark narcissist, there's 3 traits. I forget what the other 2 are, but the third trait that makes you a dark narcissist is being spiteful. Like, it's a really serious thing, and it leads up to eventually wanting to murder people, or in my opinion, major world problems like war and stuff like that. Like, spite is it's a serious deal. And so anyway, so I was full of spite. I was a spiteful person. I believed in it. I believed I had the right to revenge, and that revenge could actually lead anywhere. and do anything. And so that's what I would do. It was like, I'll be nice to everyone, but if someone F's with me, they're really gonna get it. They're gonna feel it. I'll never talk to them again. If they try to shake my hand, I won't shake it. I won't answer them if they talk to me. You know, and I remember saying stuff to people, you know, stay the F away from me, or, you know, you don't deserve to, or I don't want to see your face, and you don't deserve to hear my voice, et cetera, et cetera. Like all just this attitude, this dark spirit of vindictiveness. I call it spite, of believing in revenge and that I have the right to it based on what someone did. And I couldn't understand, I didn't understand how forgiveness works, and that until I experienced forgiveness from other people. And I'll be very careful. Like, I don't want to implicate other people and say who they are, so going back to last April, I experienced someone was very forgiving and understanding with me in a way that kind of shocked me. If the shoe was on the other foot at that time, like if the person had done to me what I did to them, I at that time I would have said, well, then F you, I'm going to block you. I'll never talk to you again. You're garbage to me, kind of thing. Right. But this person didn't do that to me. It was sort of like, you know, okay, well, you know, that this sucks that this has happened, but like the person was merciful and understanding and forgiving, and so that kind of was going on in the back of my head for a time. And also a little bit of time went on up to last November. I rejected someone else. Like they went to try and greet me, and I wouldn't shake their hand. I just looked at them and walked away, because I believe that I had the right to do that, right? And maybe we'll come back to this. One of the points is too with vindictiveness, with spitefulness, is I'll ask anyone out there who is vindictive: are you actually able to just punish and reject one person? Because my experience was I couldn't. Like for me, evil, in this case, unforgiveness, malice, spite, it can't be contained. It can't be compartmentalized. Evil is like a fire. So I can try to like, I'm just going to punish one person. But as I go on, as the year goes on, I'll be holding 6 grudges, and then I'll be holding 20 grudges, right? It's like, oh no, that's their friend, so they got to go. And that guy's defending what they did, so he's got to go. It becomes like, it takes a life of itself. Like wherever I go, into the new job, the new place, the new relationship, those shadows will follow me around. And so that's what I came to. For maybe other people are wired differently, but for me, I either forgive them all or I forgive none of them. It's either all or none. There's like, if I want to hold a grudge against one person, within a year, it'll be back to being at war with 40 people. That's been my experience. And I noticed that with other people who are kind of vindictive too, and I would ask them, you know, are you actually able to just punish one person, or is it a pattern that seems to be following you around? And because that was my experience. So anyway, November came, I rejected another person. And I think maybe that's where the crack or one of them was, God came in through, because I had some self-doubt about it. I was thinking, I had that self-justified anger of, well, no, they did this. They deserve to be shunned and stuff. But I was some self-doubt going on, like, you know, this is like yet another person being shunned, like another person on the list. And I was starting, like, if you're at war with 30 people, could it have something to do with you? Like, who's the common denominator here, right? And so anyway, so that happened in November, and then early December, I experienced forgiveness and unforgiveness within the same 24 hours. So I made this really stupid mistake towards someone. I went to them I owned up to what I did. I felt terrible about what I did. And, you know, I didn't realize how stupid what I did was at the time. Like I was sincerely apologetic, and the person forgave me. They like just let it slide. They even had, which is what I try to do today. They were almost like anxious to forgive. Like apparently the word forgive, the word like for in the word forgive is like forearm, like the first part of your arm, like forgiving, giving first, like to have that attitude. So that this person had the attitude of like almost like making excuses, like I'm not happy with what you did, but I could see where you're coming from. It was late at night. We all do stupid things, blah 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 blah. Like that open, merciful spirit, and that actually works. I noticed that it went somewhere. Like this is a key thing, is it's uncomfortable at first because I feel ashamed or embarrassed about what I did or whatever. But then a few days goes by and it's healed up. And me and this other person were great. We've talked yesterday or something. And like they forgave. Maybe the way they were raised was they were taught to believe in forgiveness or whatever. But when you do forgive, it actually works. It actually goes somewhere. And then, so later that day, after experiencing forgiveness, I experienced unforgiveness from someone and saw how it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Like all it does is you go into that purgatory state and stay there forever, where it's like, okay, we're not talking to each other again forever now. And then you just stay there forever. Right. Until there's forgiveness, or maybe there never will, or whatever. So I finally got it. That was enough to sort of like jar my mind and spirit and whatever. And I realized that, like, you know, I remember I was in therapy a few months ago or 6 months ago or something. And I was talking to the person, my counselor, like, you know, oh, I understand if I'm tired or irritable sometimes here and there, that's fine. I can live with that. The other person deserves to have me not talk to them forever. And like, I just couldn't get it. Like I said before, the parasite or being under a spell or whatever. But I finally realized in December, it's like, no. It's not, you're just tired sometimes from, this is mapping the whole course of your entire life. Like you're being a vindictive person is destroying your life. Like it's not just a small problem. It's termites. It's affecting your whole way of seeing. And, your whole life is just being destroyed, and it does not work. That's the point I want to bring home today. If I could only pick one point, is it's not just about forgiveness being wrong. It's not just about unforgiveness being wrong and cruel and mean and stuff. It does not work, and that's guaranteed. Just like 2 + 2 is 4, or the sun's coming up tomorrow. There's no example of unforgiveness working in the history of the world, and I invite anyone to tell me if they think there is one. Because I looked into it, God took me on a journey through space and time, basically, and I finally get it now. It doesn't work. It doesn't. So I invite anyone to.
Yeah. So when you realized that, was that a moment that you had, or was it a gradual understanding that came to you over time?
I had a vision. Everything clicked within 4 days. The first day was experiencing forgiveness from someone and unforgiveness from someone else, and realizing how one actually works and one just doesn't. And then over the next number of days, I remember in the mornings before going to the gym, before going to work and stuff, I was just like crying, and on the drive to the gym the next day, I felt like physically different. I was like, you know, I don't want to say it was a scene from Star Trek, but it was like God. I believe, I know I sound maybe kind of crazy, at least it's a positive crazy, but somehow God was scraping up all that spite, all that malice out of me, all that self-justified darkness, and God just took it out. Like I've lost the desire to hold a grudge. I've lost the desire to punish or reject anybody. I don't believe it anymore. I know 110% it doesn't work or do anything. And today I'm glad to be, I believe in the light. I believe in following forgiveness. I finally got it, but it took about 4 days for all of it to click, all the lessons of forgiveness.
And how has that changed how you feel?
Oh, I feel 10 times, like today is February 7. I feel about 10 times better today than I did December 1, 22. And see, forgiveness is sort of an on the ground thing, and because it involves other people, and you got to put it into practice. And there's a leap of faith in it when you forgive. Like, is it gonna? But then it does work, as I've seen, and it does go somewhere. But for me, I was sort of, maybe as I grew up, or my personality, I was always in my head, like more intellectual, and forgiveness is an on the ground piece. Because it involves, and it's emotional, like you got to go out but if you do forgive, you'll see it work. I started noticing the difference within about 2 days of forgiveness, because I started putting it into practice, running into people that I had been treating as invisible for like 4 years or more, people that I was sort of colder to, I went out of my way to be kinder to, and yeah, like I noticed it's like, oh wow, this actually works. Like I feel there's even like unsafe people that I believe I have to walk around them, not to punish them, but for my own safety, right? Like I don't want sugar in my gas tank. So even people like that, I can still wave, hey, how you doing, or whatever, and then and sort of quietly, like not to make a scene, but quietly disappear or go out of the building or whatever. Um, living this way actually works, and I noticed that within like 2 days that it works so much better. And my old way of doing things, it doesn't amount to anything. You just stay stuck. Um, you go into that purgatory state and you stay there forever until you don't.
That's a really cool story of a profound realization, which then, like you said, cleared that channel. Because I know exactly what you're talking about. I've had experiences like that in recovery where I was stuck on something, and it just made me feel toxic inside, and it was so hard for me to see through that character defect or idea that I was holding on to. But once I was able to let it go, the freedom that came with it, the happiness, the peace is profound. And, the clarity also that arises, which then puts everything in its proper place. I think that one of the thoughts that I had when I was first working the steps was that this is kind of like a one and done thing. Once I do the steps, I understand a couple of things, I'm good. Like this is my new permanent state. But the changes that we're going through it's like a lifelong pursuit of purification, of realization, of self-improvement. And it sounds to me like that character defect that you had, the spitefulness, right, was something that was very strong and hard to let go of. And I'm sure that a lot of people can relate, whether it's that or something else, right? Like it could be greed, for example, in somebody else. And it's just very hard for them to see through that character defect. But ultimately, if they don't, they're the ones that are walking around feeling toxic all the time, right? Like you might not forgive me for something I did to you, but if I'm in the program and I know well enough, I'll just say, okay, Dylan is just not ready, or maybe he's just still sick. He needs, to have that realization. I won't internalize it and take it personally, but you're the one walking around with that resentment anyways, right? So,
and I believe, like cosmically speaking, I actually don't have the right to not accept an apology. And I know that's a strong statement, but I dropped it because that's all the other person can do. And I get that the way I saw it before was like, well, if all they can do is apologize, that's not good enough. That's not going to make up for. And now I've had a total shift of like, I actually don't have the right to withhold forgiveness. And who am I? See, the thing is, like, who am I to do that? Like now there's clarity in the big picture. Is that like I'm one person in the world, and with all the mistakes I've done and the things I've done wrong and stuff, the idea of me not forgiving someone else is actually a joke. Like it's pathetic. Like, who am I to be doing that to people? I don't have the right cosmically to punish people and to decide, this person needs to have this happen to them. And like having a cruel and antisocial streak is nothing to be proud of. I used to think it was. It's I don't have the right, and I don't want to be that way anymore. And like it's all like all the lessons of forgiveness, they go hand in hand for sure. Like there's a number of key bullet points, but I think the one that finally got through to me the most was just the fact that unforgiveness doesn't work.
Beautiful.
That was when it was like, whoa. And then all the other points followed of like, who am I to be doing that? Unforgiveness is unkind, unhealthy, spiritually incorrect. I'm hurting myself the most, because sure, I could hurt a lot of people, and I did. Like a lot of people were it's not okay to a word a lot of people use nowadays is abuse. I like to use the word emotional violence, because you could do a lot of things to people that are evil, but they're not illegal. And actually most of them are spite based. So gossiping, targeted or the one I forgot to mention before is branding people. So I used to like give someone a nickname, and then call them that to their face or to other people or whatever. And like when you, I'm not going to get political here, but there's maybe some political figures in the recent past that are vindictive, that do that to other people. Like they'll give they'll give someone a nickname, and then from then on, that person is called that. And it's like, that's just so toxic. That all that does is reinflame the spite within me, and it dehumanizes the other person. And so anyway, but I've let it all go, or it's all been taken out of me. I've let it all go. It's gone. Like I have no desire to be like that anymore. And I know that doing that kind of stuff doesn't lead anywhere anyway. There's no example in the history of the world, caveman times, ancient Rome, Civil War, 2023, talking to you right now. There's actually no case on record of where retaliating against people, like punishing and rejecting people, being spiteful, has ever worked. And I invite anyone out there, if you can think of a case of it actually working, where unforgiveness worked, let me know, because I'm all ears. But so far, the way I can't think of a time it's ever worked in the history of the world.
I agree. And time again, I've realized that if I stick to those spiritual principles that are talked about in the big book and in every spiritual path, right? Like forgiveness, like love, compassion, truth, acceptance, all of these sort of, Hallmark card like slogans, but really they're extremely powerful attitudes and principles that create a very harmonious existence for us if we can practice them to the best of our ability. They destroy whatever darkness is inside of us that makes us feel like something is missing, like we're incomplete, like the world is a dark place, right? It's all my perception if I'm seeing things that way. And so for me, I've always known that if I'm seeing things in a negative light, it's something inside of me that I need to change, right? Sometimes sometimes it takes longer to realize than others. And I know that for a fact that there's a lot of character defects still inside of me that I need to work on. And as long as I'm willing and I pay attention to the way that I interact with others and interface with this beautiful reality of ours, I'll be able to find out what those are. And God spoke to you through those people that forgave you. Those were, I guess, very profound moments where it gave you a glimpse as to a different way of being.
Yeah, it was like, and I used to wonder that too sometimes. Is like, it seems like the vast majority of the world is or a lot of people seem to believe in forgiveness. Anyway, I don't know if it's the majority, but a lot of people believe in. So why is that? And then as time has gone on, it's like, oh, they're doing that because they know it works. And it works better for everyone. It works better for me, works better for, like, I believe that God wants me to forgive everyone, even those who aren't sorry. Like, I regret when I share that I've actually had people that were sorry and come to me and then me telling them to go away. And I get today that cosmically speaking, I don't have the right to do that. But God wants me to forgive those who even aren't sorry for my own well-being, for the sake of society. I have the right to walk around unsafe people, but that's a different subject. But I can be so kind to people when I walk around them, they won't even know I'm walking around them. And I have to have that open, merciful spirit that if they do change, because people can change, then let them in again. And like I have that understand. So can I just tell you, I know we're running the time. Can I tell you two quick things?
Yeah, absolutely.
Two quick points that were huge for me as well. So the first is Saint Teresa, or Saint Teresa, not Mother Teresa, but the one who was, she died young in the convent of polio or whatever, Saint Teresa of Lisieux.
Yep.
So apparently she was, so another sister in the convent, Saint Teresa couldn't stand her and didn't like her at all. And that came to light afterwards, I guess, because of in her diary or something. And so I think it was a priest showed me the story when I was a kid. He was trying to get through to me then about how to deal with people and stuff. And anyway, Saint Teresa was so kind to this. The other person, she thought that they were best friends. Like Saint Teresa was walking around her the whole time. But she did it in such a kind, loving way. The other person had no idea that Saint Teresa was, had a guard up against her or whatever. And it's kind of like, isn't that amazing? That's what God wants me to do. But that's what actually works, right? Like if she is in the convent with her and they run into each other and she says to you, F you, and I've never liked you. And you know what I mean? Like all that kind of stuff, or the silent treatment, not talking to her at all. And all what's going to happen? That's just going to bring the destructive force into their relationship and in the community. And like, it doesn't work, right? It's not even just about right and wrong and being healthy and that's part of it. But again, like forgiveness works, period. Unforgiveness does not work, period. It doesn't work. It never has. It never will. And so anyway, that's one story that I get it today. I couldn't get that before when I was younger, but at least I understand it today. And just the other second thing quickly is I think I was in high school and we were watching a documentary. It was about a serial killer or something. And it was someone that everyone would agree is a monster. I think it was John Wayne Gacy or someone like that. And the interviewer, CNN or whatever TV, like she goes in to talk to him, and she's being polite to him, and she goes in, shakes his head, hey, how you doing? Thanks for meeting with me, and all this kind of stuff. And I remember I was actually confused as a kid. I asked the teacher, I said, I was like, why is she being nice to him and shaking his hand? Like like that guy killed all those people, he's a piece of garbage. Like I don't want to even talk to someone like that, and I don't want to. Like I couldn't get it. And to be honest, I didn't get that until December, like this past December. Anyway, what the teacher said to me at the time, and then now I get it today, that she's like, she's being kind and respectful to him, not based off of who he is, but off of who she is.
Wow.
And I didn't get it then as a kid. I remember just looking confused, like I don't get it, but now I get it. It's like I want to be kind and loving to everyone. If other people don't want that, that's fine. I can respect that too. And I want to have that open understanding, forgiving, like FORE, forgiving attitude. And, I believe in that today because I know that that's what actually works. That's what actually goes somewhere. And God removed that root and branch, any of my belief in that I have the right for vengeance and all this kind of, all that self-justification and it makes me laugh. Maybe it's a nervous laughter. It makes me laugh now. And, again, I can't, it's over with now. I don't want to involve other people. And I'm not talking about my immediate family here because some people know them and they tried a million times as well to teach me about forgiveness. Like I'm not talking about, my parents do believe in forgiveness. They tried to get through. One of my parents, I think they told me, just wait till one of the people you're ignoring dies. Right. So like, I'm not throwing them under the bus here, but in my extended family, I believe there's a dark spirit of vindictiveness that runs through the family. And I'm not going to name names or say who, but we spent time around one of these people when I was a kid. And I believe I could have learned the stuff from this person is spitefulness, because this person was actually diagnosed as a narcissist. And I feel like the word narcissist is it's overused in today's world and abuse. There's a lot of, especially millennials, they'll go around and they don't know what they're talking about, but every day, gaslighting, narcissist, toxic, psychopath, like they don't know what those words actually mean. They're very loaded, strong buzzwords. And there's only 0.2% of the population actually is a narcissist. So most people are going to live and die their life without meeting one. I unfortunately actually did as a kid. And I believe I might have learned the spitefulness off of this person. And again, I can't blame them. Right. Like when I talk this way, I'm an adult. I did what I did. I have to go and fix that. I made my choices. But I believe maybe that's where I got it from was maybe I saw them the way they dealt with people and thought they had the right to punish people and not talk to people ever again and say nasty. Like maybe I learned it from them because we were over there a lot as a kid between ages like 0 to 7 or whatever the ages are for your formative years or whatever. So I'm thinking maybe that's where I learned in my belief, my deep-seated belief in revenge and that I could go anywhere from. But anyway, I'm beyond relieved. Like I'm thrilled that it's over with somehow. Again, I'm not a religious guy like we talked about earlier, but I was delivered. Somehow God delivered me from, like, I actually find it shocking the way I used to be. Like when I look at the stuff I did and believed in and saw, when I look at it today, it's like, wow, that's unreal. And it's very similar to actually when I look at when I used to drink, going back to the beginning of the talk. I look at that like it was like a dream, like a different life, a different person. It's like, wow, you know, I can't believe I carried on that way. Same thing with the vindictiveness problem. It's just gone. And I feel so much better, 10 times better, you know. And that was probably the biggest awakening of my lifetime. When I'm in my 70s and 80s, I'll be going around, you know, you won't believe what happened to me when I was 32. And I mean, and if there's any more headed my way, God, bring it on. You know, he took me up in the rocket ship. I'd be willing to jump back on it with him. But that was, I would imagine that's the biggest one of my lifetime. It was just a total
shift. Yeah. And I'm sure there will be others if you continue to stay willing and stay on this path. And I think that you sharing this story on the show, and of course, you know, in the future with others in whichever way, is going to help others who are going through what you've gone through, you know, dealing with that vindictiveness and spite, and hopefully let them go. But as you and I both know, we can only suggest or lead by example. It's probably the strongest way to help somebody, but ultimately people have to be willing to look at themselves and to dig, right? And to want to move to a better place within. So, well, Dylan, before I let you go, I wanted to ask you about the music that you make, because I know you have some social media links that you want to share with people. You want to tell people a little bit about what you do?
Okay, sure, for sure. And again, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. You know, if there's only one thing people can get is forgiveness it's a mystery and a miracle. No matter how complicated or difficult a situation is, it will always help. That's somehow what has. So it's bringing God right down into the world, or even in a non-religious way. Even psychologists, people who don't believe in God, secular, they'll all tell you the same thing. It's forgive, forgive, forgive. It's a mystery and a miracle. It works, and it always makes a situation better, no matter how complicated it might seem. And then as for what I do and on my free time, I guess, like I like working and all that, but I'm involved in music. I don't think it's true, but it's been said that I'm the best guitarist in Peterborough, and like I think I'm okay at what I do. I'm good at I could give you a really good blues solo or whatever, and stuff. But I'm in a band. It's been pretty successful. We only formed up this past August, but it's taken right off. We're playing all over the place live. And so I'm the lead guitarist and backup singer in BRISK Recharge. It's the name of the band. And we got videos on YouTube if you want to check it out. And I think we got a Facebook page as well. So, you know, feel free to search BRISK Recharge, and it's on Instagram. And yeah, so that's going well. So stay tuned. There's always be more and more online footage coming up if you want to see me play guitars or whatever. And I don't think I speak as well as I play guitar. Like in this interview,
no, you did.
What's he talking about?
No, you're a very well-spoken guy, and you had a very powerful message to share. But for the listeners and viewers, Dylan is an amazing guitar player, and I definitely recommend that you check out his social media links and his channel if you like you know, blues and rock and roll. He's awesome. So Dylan, I will wrap it up here. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing this message with me. Yeah, I mean, keep doing what you're doing. I love I love that you're still just as excited about the program and about spirituality as you were when you first came in. And
I haven't felt this close to God in a long time.
That's beautiful, and clearly it's working for you.
Yeah, they go. Forgiveness and faith go together, right? And my faith couldn't be stronger right now. It's unbelievable.
That's amazing.
Couldn't be happier.
That's amazing. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, we'll be in touch. All right.
All right. God bless.
God bless.